is the Explosion Network's Fast and Furious podcast, and we don't have friends. We have family. Each week in the lead up to Fast and Furious 9, she'll be cracking a Corona to discuss the films, characters, music, and more of the Fast saga. My name's Dylan Blight, and joining me today on this very show, Ashley Hobley.
Hey Dylan, excited to be here because as you just said before we started the show, you don't care if I'm sick as a dog or in bed with Beyonce. You call, I show.
That's so good. That's so good. Because that's actually what we were just talking about.
It's like an in-joke that works because it's also like associated to the episode somewhat. So that was good. And also here, Kieran Merchant.
I can't even try and compete with that. I'm not the funny member of Explosion Network. I'll just admit that now. Let's carry on with the show and live our lives, shall we?
Yeah, the best part's over now, as it is every week. But,
it's all done. You can just leave if you'd like.
Unless Ash is going to. Oh no, we need to get to Ash reciting his favorite quote later. That'll be the best part.
Yeah.
So on today's episode, we are talking about the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. It was released in 2006, directed by Justin Lin, written by Chris Morgan. I'll note that this was their first for the both of them. Chris Morgan, of course, ends up doing a bunch of them. Justin Lin ends up doing a bunch of them. Main cast of the film: Lucas Black, Shad Moss, aka Bow Wow, Sung Kang, Brian T, Leonardo Nam, Nathalie, Kelley, Jason Tobin, and Alden Ray. The synopsis of the film is: a teenager becomes a major competitor in the world of drift racing after moving in with his father in Tokyo to avoid a jail sentence in America.
It's called drifting.
What do you mean, drift?
The cars are lighter. The tires are slick. When you drift, if you ain't out of control, you ain't in control.
Now, I do want to start with, because we've kind of been leading up to this point throughout this whole show, this is the one Fast and Furious movie that Ash has not seen. So, Ash, how do you feel about Tokyo Drift?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's fun to. It's amusing to have like you've said before. It's actually about racing, which a lot of the other films are not. There is that crime element still with it, which would be fitting within a Fast and Furious movie.
It's not as prevalent as it is in any of the others, though.
No, but it's still there. It is obviously held back by Lucas Black. He was not the greatest leading man. I mean, could you pick an accent that more goes against a Japanese person, a Japanese setting?
Yeah,
I guess. Which I mean, that's probably what he's going for. Yeah, most polar opposite. He just kind of acts like the most American character at the start, like saying, "I thought you had freedom over here."
Yeah, I have a theory that you can go back to what you're saying in a second. I have a theory that potentially Justin Lin, if he could have got his way, would have just made it like he could have brought over like his better like tomorrow characters more than just Han, and had like one of those be the star or someone else be the star. You know what I mean? Like he could have made an Asian American come to Japan, and even that would have been an interesting story. But I feel like Universal Studios was like, we need white American front of poster to sell this movie, or else it's not going to go. You know what I mean? I feel like that was an important key point that they wouldn't tell you, but I feel like that's what it is. And then you end up with Lucas Black, the most white American hey girl you can get. Yeah. What else do you think about it?
I mean, drifting is interesting, I guess. It's very different to everything else. Obviously, there's the moment when Hard dies, which is in this film. It really does not fit very well with what happens afterwards. I don't think it, like, obviously what we know happens afterwards. It doesn't fit.
There's a lot of retconning, as we call it.
There's a lot of retconning.
There's a
watching,
lot of
especially
retconning.
watching
it happens multiple times.
All those two films, like bookending it, like it's hard to.
It also
go.
feels that way with watching this film and then watching Furious 7 after this.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
'Cause
we go
there's-
from 2006 to 2000.
Yeah, I'd like to
15,
say,
16,
can
17,
I
whatever
get
it is,
one
I
of
don't
them flip phones that are really big right now in
Yeah,
Tokyo?
but by the
Because-
way, so this film, when they retconned it, they've retconned it so that Tokyo Drift takes place in 2012.
Yeah.
Canonically, in the universe, it takes place in 2012 now.
So it makes Tokyo in Fast and Furious backwards and behind the times to the rest of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I guess when they made it in 2006, they would have been like, it's set in current
Yeah.
day, I guess, you know. But after all the retconning, they now say it's 2012. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, the flip phones are back, I guess. But at the same time, it's just like, whatever, who cares? Like, just accept it. And
It was
move
the Japanese Renaissance of 2012, where they went back to using technology from 2006. That's all we all remember
Yeah.
that time, right?
it was
Yeah.
a very short period, but
Can I ask?
it did happen.
Can I ask Ash? Do you see why everybody fell in love with Han from this movie?
Yeah, he's like the super charismatic, like wise, like aloof, cool guy who eats stuff.
Who's
all
the
time.
mentor figure in this? He's like the pseudo father figure, mentor figure.
Yeah.
In this in a lot of ways. And he's like the cool dude, so.
I mean, I think it's more interesting watching this now after seeing Han's story all prior. I imagine watching this first to be like, oh, he's a player and he's like going after all
Yeah.
these chicks and everything. But now watching this, you're like, oh, he's just trying to fill that hole that Gisele's left.
Yeah, Gisele left. Yeah.
You can tell
Ma-
it even connects from his, the thing of in Bad Luck Tomorrow, he is a heavy smoker, and then throughout the movies we've seen that he eats snacks to try and like compensate for that addiction. It's very much the same of he's lost Gisele. He's now kind of being this player / womanizer to kind of compensate now, to kind of help with him deal with that emotion and that loss. That is pretty interesting.
Yeah, this is all one of my favorite things about the Fast and Furious franchise these days is that kind of like some stuff they do in Star Wars where it's like they release a film or they release a book or whatever else, and it kind of helps you like somewhat proper canon retcon / also like headcanon retcon, but it allows you to look at characters for a different lens, even if it isn't specifically said in the film. You know what I mean?
It's
So
like,
it's like
how
when we talk about the Rogue One Darth Vader thing in New Hope, where that's fan retconning because we're now going, oh, he gets super angry at the end of Rogue One, so then that explains why he's super angry at the start of New Hope. Of course, that isn't actually what happened because Rogue One didn't come out until a very long time after. However, that's now how we all view that film. And of course, for the first time I watched this, I was just like, Han's cool, whatever. But ever since watching all those other films, yeah, exactly what you're talking about now. It's all this kind of retconning in the way that I watch it and view Han, is that he's all the womanizing stuff and whatever else is because of Gisele, and the way he acts is because of Gisele and what he's been through and whatever else. So yeah, it's like that's why I always like people like silly mindless action movies. I'm like, man, you should see. I could write a thesis on like character stories for these fucking movies. Any other initial thoughts on the movie, Ash? Things?
No, I mean everybody else is kind of fine. Like the love interest is okay. The dad's all right. Bow Wow is fine. I mean, he's kind of annoying,
Twinkie.
but he plays the role fine.
Kieran, what how do you feel about the movie? And like,
This
it's
is
been a while since you watched it, or
no. I think I watch this fairly regularly somehow, because it's one of my favorites, and I think it's the same for you and me, Dylan, where it's just kind of one of those movies from we grew up around about the same time, the same kind of age.
this was the coolest movie,
Yeah,
for
like
like
this
a
was
year
so
or
fucking
so
cool,
when I was in school.
and
Yeah.
there's something about it that no matter, and I know as I get older and as I get a better appreciation of movies and television and media from being osmosis of talking to you two more and more and being around you both more and more, every time I watch movies that I love, I definitely pick up on things that I didn't pick up on. Like Sean's accent was probably the most grating thing in this viewing of the movie than I've ever viewed before. Sometimes his lines, I'm just like, fucking hell, what is going on? Like, this is...
Swanky.
Yeah,
Gun
like
game.
yeah, it's just like wabaki, you know? It's just-
Wabaki.
It's just like you're like fucking hell, okay. But no, this movie is still so much fun. I really like Han and DK's relationship. I enjoy DK's whole side story to this because I think it does something that it in the leading up to this point and around this point, it gives the antagonist of the movie some kind of layered backstory and reasoning to why he is the way he is, that you don't really get in Fast and Furious. Like, you see more of his interactions with his uncle. You see him being a bit more of this whole DK persona is a bit more of a face for him to look more powerful in front of the people that are in his community, whereas really he is this kind of underling to a real gangster in the Yakuza that I think is very interesting. This has some of my favorite cars in the whole thing. Like, I really love the cars in this movie. And yeah, just overall, this movie's just fun and it has a great soundtrack.
Yeah. Everything you just said. I mean, yeah, this was the coolest movie in school. Everyone would just listen to the soundtrack pretty much on repeat, either through their phone, where you could have like 2 songs on your phone at the time, and they would install that many unless you were fancy enough to have a fucking, I don't know, 20 megabyte fucking SD card to put in your flip phone or whatever we had in school at the time. And everyone would just be blasting fucking Tokyo Drift, like walking around the playground and whatever else.
Do you also have the point now where Tokyo, even though it's a country and you know it's Japan and you know the value of Tokyo, when you hear Tokyo, you instantly mentally connected to Tokyo Drift and you instantly hear the song, like the main Tokyo Drift song out of this. It happens all the time for me. Anytime somebody mentions it, I feel like singing the start of that song every single time.
I was thinking about while watching it, like the Tokyo element of this and like connection wise, this would have been like my first, I would say, look at Tokyo / Japan also, because this was all before I'd seen this before I even started watching any sort of anime or anything like that. So this was like my first, like, watching this movie, I was like, oh, this is Japan, and of course this movie isn't like the greatest example of like, well, this is what Japan's really like kind of thing. But at the time, I remember watching this in high school and being like, Japan's awesome. Like, I want, I want to go to Japan. Look at this shit. This place looks awesome. So yeah, I every time I do hear the song, it's like, yeah, tie it all in. But yeah, I agree. Obviously, that Lucas Black / Shane Boswell. I mean, I don't dislike the character in particular. I do feel like they purposely did the character.
Hammed it up.
Yeah, like I feel like that they went for something on purpose, like really went for like the most stereotypical American guy, but like they went a little bit too far. But I've seen it so many times that it doesn't actually annoy me, because I got past that point a while ago. Now I just accept it for what it is. One thing I do want to talk about though, before moving on to different things, is how we feel about the opening of the movie, because I always found the opening of the movie cool / weird. And even watching it now, I'm like, it's so funny. They spend like 15 minutes doing this whole like American setup thing. Like the whole opening credit scene goes for like several minutes.
Kid from Home Improvement.
Take you into school. Yeah, like they show you all around the school. They build that guy up to be such an arsehole. They do the whole race. They spend a lot of money on that race, that opening race, of course. And then they spend time in the cop plays and whatever. Like, they spend a long time getting to Tokyo, really, in retrospect. Like, is it fine? Does it work?
I always find it, for me, it's always been a thing of seeing the school is so different to Australian / English schools that I'm always like / bewildered or amazed at watching those kind of that slow motion kind of.
I think watching it now, it's like even more relevant with all the shootings that they have in schools more now compared to back then. So yeah, it's like, oh,
I know. It's entirely there to set up that Sean is a great driver. So then when he gets thrashed in that first drift race, it's like, oh, he's completely out of his element.
Yeah. Well, it also shows he's just like super rash. I guess has a love for his car. There's also there's like a duo line where between this and what other Fast and Furious movie is? I can't remember which one is that. I think it's like Too Fast, Too Furious. Where like at the start here, where the dude's like talking about his Ferrari or whatever it is, the rich kid. And he's like, it's got 2 point whatever 6 horsepower, some bullshit. And then Sean turns and goes, it can read the brochure. I think it's like something that Tyrese also says in Too Fast, Too Furious or something like that to someone. The cop or someone like that. I think something along those lines.
It's It's very similar to when Brian is questioning his partner, like his like the supposed partner, and he's like, "I didn't know that pizza places now sold motors."
Yeah, and
it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like very similar to that, and I always wonder if they did it on purpose, like as a sort of like tie-in sort of thing. But it's similar sort of line, but also works for like showing that Sean is like he's a gearhead, like he's not just likes cars, can like wants to go fast like the other dude. He does obviously work with them and knows enough, because that is important to these movies. All the characters in the Fast and Furious franchise, they're not just like, oh, I like pressing my foot to the pedal, but like they all understand and can work cars.
It also shows that he has almost a better understanding of cars than say Brian did when we first met Brian, because
probably
he kind of understands in that first race. You can see him understanding that, okay, I'm not going to beat this car in an out-and-out race. I'm not going to be that egotistical. I'm going to
try and cheat.
I'll find my own. I'll make a shortcut or something. Like it shows he's not as egotistical as say Brian is at the start of Fast and Furious, where he's just thinking he can just fucking put a heap of NOS in it and just gear it out like that.
Go for gold.
Yeah,
work it all out. Yeah. All right, so let's get into the family / talking about some of these other key characters in this movie. So first of all, of course, we meet Sean Boswell, who we're talking about right now, who shows up briefly next week in Furious 7, and then, of course, is going to be showing up in Fast and Furious 9. We don't know how much time. Yeah,
wait, what? You blew my mind. That I'll put it out there before these two idiots make fun of me. I didn't notice him in the trailer, and these two blew my mind last week when they told me. It was.
In case you're also having your mind blown, if you want to go rewatch the Fast and Furious 9 trailer and the part right before they show the little car with a jet engine that's strapped to the top of it, Sean's right there. Like he's getting covered by Tej or someone, I think, from whoever it is.
Tej's shoulder, I think it is.
Yeah, Tej's shoulder's kind of covering, but if you pause it at the right second, you will see his gaping, smiling face at Tej. As I like to think that they're like just said, we strapped a rocket to it, and then Tej and Roman are like, you did what? Like, because he's like, we got this. Let's go. But yeah, my question is, how much time do you reckon we'll actually get with Sean in 9, and how are you going to feel? How do you reckon it's going to feel to have Sean Boswell, Mr. American accent himself, interacting with the rest of the crew? Because you got to remember, we've only ever seen him interact with Dom twice. Of course, in the after credit sequence of this movie, and then in the tie-in bit next week, and that's it. He's never actually interacted with any of the other core members of Fast and Furious.
Also, just to do the math on this, in Fast and Furious 9, how old is he supposed to be? And how old is he really? Because he's got one of those like...
I think in real life he's like 30-something. I would presume that like canonically he's supposed to be like nearly
20s.
18 in Tokyo Drift. Like I think he's like 17 turning 18. So let's say this is like a couple years later. He's like young 20s, but in reality he's like
early
30.
20s. Yeah, and it's like he's one of those people that like he's kind of not aged, but at the same time he's aged kind of badly. Like he still has.
So when they do the thing in Furious 7, it's horrible because you can obviously tell it's like 10 years later and he's aged and he does not look young at all anymore. But I'm like, whatever, you've done that. It's for a little bit to tie it in. I don't care. I think I'm possibly going to be more accepting with 9, and I might be able to accept like, oh, he's like supposed to be like 23, 24, but he looks like 30, like some people do. Like they age really fast. If they were still trying to play him as 18, it would be a big weird. No.
Yeah.
But I think because he's at least like younger 20s, mid 20s possibly at this point, like, because I don't really know how the timeline works, but you got to think like, so Tokyo Drift and Fast and Furious 7, like one right after another and connect, right? Between 7 and 8, there's I think a year or so, something like that. I don't know how long it's going to be between 8 and 9. There could be longer. So yeah, there's time to age him up between all of these at least. Yeah. But how do you think he's going to go interacting with other people, like talking to Rome and Tej? Like, how do you think the banter's going to go? Does it work in your head? Is it fine?
I think as long as they do it right, I do think, and this comes with spoilers for next week, with watching the next movie, and I haven't watched Faye, but even watching the next movie, it got to the point early in the next movie where I was like, wow, this team's grown like really small. Like, there is really only like 4 main members in this team now. That is there, after the end of the next movie. So you kind of like, okay, or 5. So it would be good if they can interject Sean as another proper member of that team, and he has good chemistry with them, or he almost, not to say we want him to do that, but he almost kind of steps into a similar place as where Brian was. Not the same, because Brian was kind of like a leader with Dom, but to kind of fulfill that kind of role within the group again would be a good position for him. I hope they have toned his accent down a little bit more for the new movie. I think
you can just straight up ditch it, because Black Widow was like Russian in Iron Man 2, and then she just suddenly lost it between films. That's fine.
Well,
yep. Like, just
same with
Scarlet
Witch. She
had an accent too. She just lost it, so it's fine. Just ditch the accent. Ash, how are you gonna? How do you reckon he'll go interacting with the?
I mean, it'll be fine. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, it's been several years. He's super cocky in the film. So whether he's still like super cocky, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. Though, of course, of update for the family in this movie is we lost Han. There's an asterisk on that because we are getting him back, but like to take into account, much like how we talked about, like when I did note when we lost Letty, and then when we got it back. So of course, in the current line, this is the film where we lose Han. It still sucks to watch, even though knowing that he comes back. I'm so glad that I chose to do this podcast for this current run, because it makes it so much more interesting to watch it, knowing that, like, how's he come back, sort of thing, like compared to if we did it like last year, and I would have been like, fuck man, I wish they'd just bring Han back. Like, it's more interesting just to be able to just go,
I have this really bad feeling, depending on how they bring Han back, but I just had this bad feeling halfway through this movie where I was like, are they gonna make Han like betray the team? Like, is he going to come back? Like, I'm like, you can't though, right? Like,
Justice is coming.
Literally. No, yeah, Justice is coming fine. Literally, Justin Lin, the director, right, of this one, and who's returning to do 9. And his last one he did was 6, right? Obviously, he stopped when the timeline caught up to his first film, he stopped. And now he's returning. And in interviews, he said the sole reason he chose to come back is because of how much 8 fucks with Han. not to skip too much ahead into spoiling stuff for next week, but like Ash is well aware of my major criticism for 8 and why I really don't like that movie. And I'm so glad that the major criticism that I had walking out of cinema when I wrote my review, that I soon saw lots of people online have, and it also turns out that the director, who of course has a big attachment to his character Han, was like, this shit's fuck, son. And he's like, I'm coming back to retcon this shit. Fuck all you. Like, I'm coming back to fix it.
I will say, one of the stupidest things I've heard about I've read about the production of this movie was that when Justin Lin was on and he was talking about bringing Han in and making this character Han, the character from Better Luck Tomorrow, and all this stuff, the only problem that Universal Pictures had was that he couldn't smoke. Mm-hmm. Which is ridiculous in this setting where there is gangsters and like underhanded bets and like scantily clad women and just everything going on. Smoking is the bad thing. He can't smoke. He has to do something else. He gets replaced with eating the snacks.
Well, I think it worked out well though, because I think the eating the snacks is a lot more wholesome GIF content than smoking Han content. So it works out quite well.
Smoking.
What was you gonna say about what was you gonna say just before, Ash, about when the stuff to do with 8?
I don't remember what I was gonna say.
I forgot. Moving on. That's fine. So yeah, we lose on extended family. So this is people who I wouldn't put in the main family group, but of course we're diving into super Dylan's headcanon stuff here. I want to point out, of course, this film has Jason Tobin plays Earl in this movie, who I've previously pointed out. He also is going to appear in F9. He's the one you can see more clearly than Sean in that.
He's the one who attached the rocket to the car.
Yes, he is. He's also the character Virgil in Better Luck Tomorrow, who I've talked about previously. Virgil, Earl. They're the same character. He's the one who spoilers. I mean, all these fucking things are spoilers. What am I on about? He's the one who shoots himself at the end of Better Luck Tomorrow. And the fan theory that I talked about before is that they run off to Tokyo. Well, they go on the run basically together, and this is where they end up. Anyway, he's Han's cousin. That's headcanon. Then we also have Alden Ray in this movie. So Alden. He plays Alden in Tokyo Drift, and in Bad Luck Tomorrow he played Alden with a U. So one's Alden, the other one's Uldn is the character he played Bad Luck Tomorrow. He's I guess the easiest way to describe it is just he's the bigger dude in Tokyo Drift. Like he doesn't have many lines, he has a couple lines, but he's always like sort of part of the Han crew. You'll see together, like he'll be standing.
He's not the person that does the race, but the first race between, freaking DK and Sean. He's not the starting line person.
No,
I
no,
love
no,
him.
no.
He's a great character. He is.
I don't think he was. I can't remember who did that.
That's like the guy with the spiky hair, and he's like really
No,
cool.
no, no,
and
no,
he,
no,
like,
no,
points
no,
to
no,
girls, and
no,
it's
no,
like
no, no.
my favorite start of any race
No,
in
no, no,
this
no.
franchise.
This guy, he hangs. He's like one of the four kind of. So you've got him, you've got Earl, and then you've also got another character I'm about to point out in a second, Rico, who's the girl, and then well, it was those three. They kind of hang around in the background a lot together. And then you've got, like, of course, Han that's part of that group, and then Sean, and then whatever,
I do.
Twinkie.
Okay, I know which one. Yep.
Yeah, so he doesn't have much, but I do think it's worth pointing out that he headcanon same character from Bad Luck Tomorrow, because he was part of the team in Bad Luck Tomorrow. I think his first scene is he's friends with the dude, you know, like they do the dude who ends up joining after he does the report, and he sets up the whole like free Ben or whatever like sign. Like this dude's one of the dudes who's like holding up the sign saying like free Ben. He's like friends with that guy. Like that's how they get introduced.
Right. Okay,
anyway,
yeah.
it's Dylan's head canon.
He has hair in Better Luck Tomorrow, if I remember rightly.
Yes, I believe so. So possible people that could show up in Fast 9 that would, I think if they show up in another movie, if they showed up in the right context, then they would get canonized into the quote unquote family. So as I said before, you got Rico, I'm not sure how you properly say it, but played by Keiko Kitagawa. Yep. She helps out Earl in Tokyo Drift. She's the one who's seen helping out tuning all the cars and checking stuff and all that sort of stuff. She's like kind of his right hand woman throughout the movie. She doesn't have many lines, but she's there. And then you've of course got Neela, played by Nathalie. I don't know. Kelley, who of course is Sean Boswell's.
Nathalie, right? It's just got a H in it.
Is it?
Yeah,
I thought it was Nathalie. Oh,
it's just Nathalie. It's just got a random H showing up in it.
Okay, weird. Yeah. So she of course, if she, I don't know, like, will she appear in F9 still with Sean? I'm gonna say, I'll put it at 50-50. I honestly feel like they could have it come in for a day, shoot a scene. It would make fans of Tokyo Drift quite happy to see them together, of course. And then it doesn't mean she has to be around for the majority of the stuff with Sean in it. But especially if they shoot a scene in Tokyo, or even if it's shot in America to look like Tokyo, just for like a quick one with him before they come to America or something like that. You know, like say like Dom calls them up or something and she's there and like has a quick interaction with him or something like that. Just for the fans, I think that would be cool.
I have to go. It's hard.
It's Han. He's back. I gotta go.
It's Han. Yeehaw.
That since you brought that up, I think that is actually something quite important to take into account for 9. Like everyone's talking about like, oh, if Han comes back, that's going to be really cool. Like it'll be really cool for Dom. Like Dom misses him. Like he's part of the family. All these sorts of things. I think a lot of people are missing how, if they play it correctly, how they could make that a really quite emotional and interesting storyline to include Sean as part of the main cast, because for him it would also be quite a big thing. That's what I'm saying, because we were talking about him before. In Tokyo Drift, Han is Sean's like mentor, father figure, these sorts of things. Like
I get the feeling in the trailer though that Han is the reason that they're there.
Yeah,
possibly.
like
I think
I get the reason that. I
feel like Han shows up very early in the movie.
But I just think that we won't see them finding out that Han's alive.
Like
I feel
they
like
found
those
out before the
characters,
start of the movie is what you're
like those characters would have already known Han is still alive.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
which is sad in missing out on that possible character moment.
No, because we're going to get Tokyo Drift 2.
So like that doesn't count as number 10 or 11. That's
it's going to go back. It's
its own spin-off franchise now. It's great. Everyone, let's go. Alrighty, so let's get into. And has anyone, before we move on to favorite line, does anyone have any other random things they want to point out?
Listen,
Tokyo Drift scenes, things.
Clearly, DK needs to come back. He only just fell down a cliff, so
he just fell down a cliff.
He only just fell down.
I like how his uncle is completely fine. He's like, "Yeah, you're okay, even though you knocked my nephew off a cliff. Should certainly lead to his death."
Technically, he kind of caused it himself. So,
I mean, why was he so trying to knock him off? Why couldn't you just try and beat him fair and square? I'm pretty sure he would have had him.
Also, I just remember because you reminded me of the last race sequence. No, has either of you watched Initial D?
No.
Has watched what?
Initial D, the anime.
No.
Yeah. So Initial D is a drifting, street racing animes that's set in. Yeah, and they have a lot of races that take place on very similar mountains to like the one that Tokyo Drift has at the very end of it. Although I watched Tokyo Drift first, I think one of the reasons I got so heavy into Initial D, which I probably started watching like a year later-ish in high school, I think one of the reasons I started loving that anime so much is because it was about street racing, which of course had a affliction for at the time, but also because lots of stuff in it just reminded me of Tokyo Drift. So if you want more street racing sort of stuff, in anime form, Initial D, in case you don't know, that's the thing. Let's move on to favorite line. Of course, every Fast and Furious movie has some great and also at times corny but gratifying dialogue. I'm going to pass the baton to set the bar high. Ashley Hobley, what is your favorite line from this movie?
I have money. It's trust and character I need around me. Who you choose to be around you lets you know who you are. And one car in exchange for knowing what a man's made of. That's a price I can live with.
Went for some heartfelt shit this week.
Yeah.
No joking lines. No joking lines. I will follow up yours because mine. Yeah, it's true. I'll follow up mine because mine also is a Han quote that is a serious one, which is the one I talked about like a week or so ago. And I think I got it like 90% right because I couldn't remember it fully, but it's where he says, "Life's simple. You make choices. You don't look back." It's like the Han quote that always stands out to me. Especially, I like that quite more, like in the context, whenever I've rewatched this movie since like Gisele and stuff, I always like read that line as like he's just hurting. The man's hurting. Kieran, what's your favorite line for this?
So let's round out the Han segment of this of this segment. There's no wax on or wax off in drifting. The first drifters invented drifting out here in the mountains by feeling it. So feel it. Like it's just like I don't do it justice. I can't do an impression like Ashley Hobley can. It's just one of those like very fluid kind of just Han moments where he has this coolness to him that is really great. It's really fun.
There's a personification of the character. All right, so for the mix, of course, we're picking 2 songs each and dropping them into the Ultimate Fast Saga playlist that you can find on Spotify right now. Link is in the description. My 2 songs, I think obviously the first one is given. There's no way around it. Tokyo Drift, Fast and Furious, Teriyaki Boys. There's no way to escape it. And then my second one is 6 Days Remix by DJ Shadow and Mos Def, which was apart from Tokyo Drift, was always my favorite song off the soundtrack. And I would mix because when this came out, I was also getting into video editing, and I would just use this song and I would mix skate videos to it all the time and random like trailers to stuff. Like I would just take this song and I would constantly edit stuff to it over and over and over and over. And that's what like stands out in my memory from it and why I kind of love it so much. Ash, what are you adding?
I also had Tokyo Drift. I mean, that you need to have it.
Yeah.
And then I also went The Barracuda by the 5-6-7-8.
Kill Bill.
Kill Bill.
Karen, what do you got?
So both of you destroyed me on this one.
That's fine.
6 Days remix, because it's I think it does something where the moment I see this and hear this song, I'm like, I'm watching Tokyo Drift. Like this is let's go. Like it's like that first song of the movie. It's fantastic. And I also had The Barracuda by the 5, 6s, and 7, and 8s because it's
by the way, my Kill Bill reference was because they have a song in Kill Bill.
They play that exact song.
Yes,
they're literally in the movie, in the background, like they're playing.
No, it's a good song, and it's very unique in this movie, especially with everything else that's being played.
The Toretto team is back.
Here's the deal. Cleve Kelso, Rafaela, and this man, Matsuo Mori, are out in the desert. It's our mission to bring them in.
Let's do this!
Just as I suspected. I have no idea where we are.
Time to talk about some more Fast and Furious spy races. Today, we're talking about the third season, subtitled Fast and Furious Spy Races Sahara. We're all off in the desert this season. A lot of desert racing, including dune buggies, the dune buggy in the sand, and a bigger world creation. So this season dropped on Netflix December 26, 2020. So not quite that long ago, but we do of course have one more season to talk about because season 4 didn't drop not too long ago. So that's the future, but the present. So this season is interesting because it's actually one in which they, as a show, I mean, look, as I've talked about in the last few times in these impression thought segment things that we're doing as bonuses for It's About Family Redux. I've been talking about how the show, it does as best a job as it can to fit that mold of being a Fast and Furious thing while also still being a kid show. And for the most part, it ticks all of the boxes it can do, and it does its own sort of things, which is good. But with this third season, it does what Fast and Furious has sort of what it started doing by the time you got around to the 5th, 6th, maybe, or whatever, wherever it started. Like it's like, okay, time to start building a connective tissue of, bringing back some villains and this sort of thing. Because that's one thing you can say about Fast and Furious franchise at this point. It's actually got pretty good at like returning characters, returning villains. It's kind of like wrestling. You have a bunch of characters doing face and heel turns at times, and that's kind of what happens here. In fact, you could almost say that this season, having Layla officially be part of the team, I know she was under my control last season, and she was supposedly still a good person, but she was still seen as a bad guy for a heel in our wrestling terms all of last season. So this season, she's done a full face turn. She's part of the quote-unquote family. So there's that as well. But so this season focuses on Cleve Kelso as the main villain. Now, Cleve Kelso was in season 1. Not one of the main villains, but one of the people who I honestly can't even remember how it worked at this stage. I'm sorry, but one of the people who like funded or created or wanted to create or something along those lines. One of the people that was heavily involved in the creation of the helmet thing that the bad person wore in the first season that let them control things or whatever else. So they're back, but also back this season is Rafaela. Sorry, what's her last name? I've got to hear somewhere. Rafaela Moreno. So, of course, was the main villain from last season. So she returns once again after being broken out of prison by Cleve Kelso. Sorry. And then we get a new character, new villain this season as well. Matuso. I'm not 100% sure on pronunciation, I'm sorry. But they're like basically a cyborg. They've got like a full cybernetic arm thing that's introduced in the first season where they're like blowing open walls and all sorts of things. And that's super out there, but also fun for this universe and the movies and the show in general, this sorts of things. So for the most part, I enjoyed the villains a lot more this season because we'd already had connections to them. Like 2 of them are returning villains, and you've got one new villain, which is basically a cybernetic ninja warrior person thing. So that's a lot of fun. The whole plot in general, of course, just adds up to Cleve Kelso wanting to take over the world. So that is whatever. I honestly kept forgetting what they were even trying to stop him to do for most of the season as I was zoning out. I'm like, what are we doing again? Oh, we're trying to stop the bad guy? Yeah, okay, whatever. Well, they got some like sci-fi gadget thing they're trying to get. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's fine, whatever. At this stage, the show is most enjoyable just for these characters because we are 3 seasons in now, and I'm having a lot of fun with these characters. I'm kind of being the like them for the most part. One thing that I really also enjoyed about this 3rd season was the fact that Echo, who I was saying last time I talked about it with season 2, Echo is the best character in the show, and she's always proven to be the smartest, coolest one of the group. And after teasing it last season and saying that she may, she's the one that had the most potential to be a spy racer, like a proper spy racer, this season she is actually taken away by, makes it sound bad. She's given the opportunity to go train under Miss Nowhere to become a nobody. I think that's what they call it, or a I don't know, to become a nowhere, become a Miss Nowhere herself, or a no person, or whatever the hell they're calling it. And that's a whole cool thing to start off the show with in the first episode while they're setting up the chess pieces of what's happening to all of our characters. And meanwhile, you have Tony, Toretto, and the remainder of the crew sort of missing her and, struggling to get things together. And then of course, Miss Nowhere and bloody mental blanking on everyone's names. Her psychic, who, what the hell is his name? I'm not editing this out. Whatever. His Gary. If the Gary isn't it, then I'm so sorry. But Gary, they get captured, plane crash, disappear, need to help them. Echo comes and gets the crew, and then you have this interesting dynamic for the remainder of the show where it's like, well, Tony's always been the leader, the big boss of the Fast and Furious Spy Racers team. However, now you have Echo in, and she's like, I've been trained, I should be the boss. And Tony has to learn how to let her to be the boss. But then, of course, by the end of the season, they come to, meet in the middle grounds where he's good at certain things, she's good at also other things. And, maybe we could have a little bit more discussion amongst future decisions being made amongst the quote-unquote family. I will say, and I think I did complain about this last time, and I'm just going to complain about it again. I understand maybe it's a meme for the show, and maybe it would be funny if they only did it like once or twice in the whole season or whatever. But they say the family thing so often this season, and I think it's just more noticeable because you now also have Layla as a character pointing out how Tony calls everything the family and his family and family this, family that. I think at one stage someone literally says in the show, like, it's about family. I'm like, yeah, plug the podcast, plug the bloody podcast. But that becomes kind of grating, so didn't love that. As for the location of this season, really great. Desert scene, Sahara Desert. I appreciate how each season goes to a completely different location or, does the best job to make it stand out and be completely different to the last one. You have these cool things where they're not always driving cars, like they're driving around these little dune buggies. Of course, they're racing them at some stage. Actually have to race them. You get this little cool storylines for some of the characters. Like, I feel like Frosty got the worst end stick of this season, which is fine because they had the most the previous season. They had like a lot of character development there, so that's fine. And obviously Echo and Tony are a big focus this season. Cisco, again, is always sort of this background character. I feel like Cisco surely has to get a little bit of work in season 4. Has to get his moment, surely. We shall find out. I don't really know. But then Layla, of course, gets a lot of time this season as well because this is her officially joining the family, being part of that group. And there's a nice dynamic between her and Tony continuing. They have this sort of friendly rivalry now after starting off with enemies, and that's quite enjoyable to watch. But also she's having to deal with this season coming to a place where she's wronged people here. Now that's sort of costing her, and you have to see the effects of that and all this sort of stuff. Miss Nowhere and Gary weren't in the season as much, but that's fine because they were heavily featured last season. So I appreciate how they're switching out the characters that get the biggest focus and which ones get the most character time and that sort of stuff. I mean, again, I'm saying this for a kid's show, but it's still nice to see, and I appreciate that. So that's good. Overall, I'd say this season's I don't know, maybe the second best so far. First season was probably still just the most overall enjoyable, but it would be up there. I think this is better than the second season. I think the villains are a bit more enjoyable this time as a group. I think the setting and everything I just enjoyed a lot more. Having Layla actually be part of the group, having Echo be in this like sort of leading role where she's being properly given the ability to be the character that I thought she could be. Like, it's just overall a lot more enjoyable. So that's where I'm sitting at for that. Still enjoying it. One more season to go. Season 4 to go. And then I'm all caught up on Fast and Furious Spy Races. So look forward to me talking about that season. Fast and Furious Spy Races Mexico is what season 4 is. Look forward to me talking about that in a couple of weeks, of course.
Tony, don't distract us.
My bad.
We gotta take these guys down!
Don't worry, I got this.
I don't know why I try to fight it. Let's keep doing stupid stuff.
So they'll do it for this week's episode. Looks like we're all out of nos. Laughing off, Kieran. He said the line. You can follow us all on Twitter by heading to explosionnetwork.com/Twitter. Next week, of course, we're catching right up. We're going to be discussing Fast and Furious 7 or Furious 7. I don't know. These movies are called different things in different countries once they get past 4. So make sure you watch that movie before the episode drops. And remember that #justice is coming.
So, wa kanatu disuka.
Did you just say, is it though, in Japanese?
Yeah.